Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about inlays. We're going to be talking about how you use them and why you use them. We're going to be using this bumper. This is an M3 bumper. We have some areas which are going to be really difficult, and I'm going to show you guys how to go about doing inlays on this bumper. Alright guys, so as a beginner, you're going to be thinking to yourself, hey, where do I put these inlays? Anywhere you kind of feel iffy about, the ability to stretch the film in, you should just put an inlay in there. Don't be scared. Inlays are a good thing. Inlays will prolong the life of the film. They will prolong how it looks. Your customer's gonna be happy. A lot of films do have different limitations, so just throughout your whole experience of vinyl wrapping, you'll be able to test these films, and you'll be able to be like, hey, you know what? I can go this far with this film. Hey, I can't go this far with this film. But inlays are not a bad thing, so use them. All right, guys. So before we start, in my hand I have Knifeless tape. Knifeless tape is used for areas like this, such as inlays. It'll help you keep your lines straight. It'll help you visually see where your film is ending, where your film is going to overlap, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with is putting on this Knifeless tape. This starts as one line. It goes into two. We're going to actually run on the harder line. The reason we run on this line that's a little bit more bold, sticks out more, is that because the overlap right here will hide much better than if we do it right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab our Knifeless tape. We're going to put it on the edge of this, and you can visually see where the film is potentially going to end at. That way, let's say you start going outward, you can be like, hey, you know what, I got to fix that. It's not going to look good. So you just pretty much follow the line, just like this. And again, we're using this line that's a little bit harder because it's going to blend better, just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and put our Knifeless tape in here where the other side is going to end, just like this. So we have our Knifeless laid down. Before we actually get to the full installation of the inlay, this is a little test that I run myself to see if my inlay is in the right place, if it's in the right angle, if I need to push out a little bit more, if I got to move my Knifeless tape. So what we're going to do is go ahead and kind of mimic a little section of the full installation. So the first thing we're going to do is keep our Knifeless tape where we initially put it, because that's what we're going for. What we're going to do is go ahead and install what would be the inlay with our Knifeless tape. So we would go ahead and just kind of, just do your installation. Leave your Knifeless where it's at. Put this in. And the reason I'm doing this is because sometimes when I go ahead and put the bigger piece, it tends to fall a little bit short. And then you'll go ahead and start, putting heat to it, overstretching it. You're gonna have lifting issues. This is a good test to see if I put my inlay in the right area. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna rip apart this Knifeless tape to see where our inlay is actually at. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. All right, so this is pretty much mimicking our actual inlay that we're technically doing. What we're gonna do is go ahead and lay Knifeless on the opposite side. This is for our overlap. Now, continuing our test, what we're going to do is grab a piece that's fairly big. We're going to mimic the action of pretty much doing a full bumper like this. So what we're going to do is go ahead and peel the backing off. We're going to go ahead and place it on this side and just put a little bit of pull over here, just like that. So now that we have that on there, we're going to go ahead and heat this up a little bit. Make sure that we can see our Knifeless through the piece. That way we can ensure that our overlap to the inlay is good. We're gonna go ahead and grab our other end and pull the Knifeless back. Alright, so in doing this, this is gonna ensure that my other piece falls in there in place, and then I have enough coverage over my inlay so that you don't see anything. So pretty much we have our full bumper installed already. We're gonna heat it up, relax the film. Let it cool down a little bit. Remember, you don't want too much tension on it, especially on these areas. And then once it's cooled down, we can go ahead and give it a little squeegee. Alright guys, so our film actually landed where it needed to be. In some instance, when you run this test, this piece can land right here. That means we would have to move our Knifeless over. A lot of people tend to just want to pick it up and stretch it and pull it to make it reach. I've seen that a lot. What happens there is that once it hits the sun, there's so much stretching here that it's actually going to recede back and pull back, and you're gonna have a lot of lifting issues right there. So it just make sure to, you know, put your Knifeless, test this out. If it's too short, you know, when you actually go to install your full piece, move your Knifeless over a little bit just to make sure it's enough to cover and you don't have any tension around this area. All right, guys, so now that we have done our little test, making sure that our overlaps match, that they reach each other, where we're gonna put our inlays, we're gonna go ahead and get started with this bumper. All right, guys, so now that we've laid the Knifeless tape around this whole edge, we're gonna go ahead and lay it where we laid it the inside the first time. So where we had it the first time was proper, so we're gonna align it to the same place where we did it. One important thing to remember also is to remember which Knifeless piece is going over which one. If you do get it mixed up, you can tend to rip the vinyl where these two meet. So please make sure you remember what Knifeless is on top of which one. That way you can make sure that you get a nice clean cut on your Knifeless. All right, guys, so as we're gonna lay this inlay down, what we're gonna do right here is place a piece of Knifeless. We're gonna have a union of both pieces right here. So this is part of our inlay. So we're gonna go ahead, put our Knifeless in here, make sure it's straight. All right, guys, so I laid my piece of Knifeless in. I do tend to put it up a little bit higher just because I like my seams to kind of lay flat, as opposed to laying kind of, you know, one curved into another one. It just, to me, I feel like there's a lot of tendencies for it to lift there or for water to seep in. So just my preference, I like to lay them flat, so I will put my Knifeless up a little bit higher. All right, guys, so I got my piece pre-cut already for this inlay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and roll this piece on here. We're gonna go ahead and tack it in the center and work our way out. All right, guys, so we got our piece. We're gonna go ahead and roll it. Just, you know, generically place it around here. You don't have to be too exact. We're gonna move it anyways. So the first thing we're gonna do before we start anything, we're gonna go ahead and find a center point to this. So just find the center of your bumper, pick it up, and we're gonna create a hinge point. So we're gonna go ahead and tack it down right here pretty firmly. And now we're gonna work our way left and right. So now that we have created our hinge, we have a lot of excess film that we can go ahead and cut away. You know, it makes it easier to work with where you don't have so much unnecessary film. So we're gonna go ahead and make our incision there. And now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run my hand down the bottom of this bumper, and we're gonna stop right there. All right, so now that we have our piece up to here, we're gonna need a little bit of heat just to try to start molding this piece up into this corner. So I'm gonna just grab my heat gun, soften it up a little bit, and just work our way in. Again, just grab some more heat. This might take a little bit of time, but it's okay, don't worry. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and start heating it. Making sure everything reaches. Go ahead and start tacking this film down. What we're gonna do is, as we are going, we're gonna have material getting stuck. We just keep going and keep cutting away. That'll just relieve all this tension that we have here that's making it difficult for this piece to lay down properly. We need some more heat. Our goal here is just to cover up until the where we have our Knifeless tape at. So you can also put this bumper on the car. You can do it with all the grills in there, but the job comes out much cleaner if you disassemble it properly, and it'll last longer. It'll look cleaner. Go ahead, work that material in. Keep going. You're gonna keep cutting off the extra film. Go ahead, grab my squeegee and push that in the edge. All right, I see my other Knifeless here, so that means we're good up here. Just bring this, take this off a little bit, bring this over a little bit, make sure it's in there right, properly. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and cut this across, just because there's a lot of tension right here. Once we cut this across, it'll relieve this so we're able to drop this in there. And as we're going, again, we're cutting more off of the film to relieve some of the tension. So as I'm going and I'm cutting little by little, I don't want to cut too big of a piece because I'm not too sure that if once I lay it all the way down, it's going to come up short. If I start off here, cut off a big piece and I don't have enough material, then we're going to start all over. So your best bet is just to go little by little as you're working it. You can kind of feel, hey, you know what, I have this much to work with. I can go ahead and cut some more. And so right there, we're up to our edge, and we're going to go ahead and do the other side. Ready to go. We're going to focus a little bit in the center. We're just going to go ahead and tuck this in until we see our Knifeless tape peeking through. What I'm going to do is just heat it up, pick it up a little bit off of the bumper, heat it up, make sure everything's flat. And now I'm going to go ahead, pick up the film, let it relax a little bit, let it cool down. And I'm just going to work my way in with my squeegee. I have a little bit of wrinkles there. We're just going to go ahead and apply some more heat. Again, same thing. We're going to let it sit, let it cool down a little bit. Once the film is relaxed, we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep pushing into our corner or into our edge pretty much. In the center, we're going to need a little bit more heat just because it does indent downward. Give it a little bit of heat. And we're going to go ahead and just push in our film. And if you feel like it's still getting stuck, again, we can go ahead and give it a little bit more of a trim. Take off some of the excess film. Remember, if you're going to take off excess film, the preferred way to do it is just go little by little. Make sure you don't cut off too much of it. Right here, the Knifeless tape does go inward, so we're going to give it a big of a good enough slice just to let both the material relax and we can be able to move it around and push it over. And I see my Knifeless peeking through my vinyl, and I'm good to go ahead and rip it off. Okay, so now that we have our inlay in place, everything's good to go. We see the Knifeless tape peeking through the vinyl itself. Everything's flat, everything's ready to rock. We're gonna go ahead and start peeling off our Knifeless tape. So, like I said, please remember in the order you placed it in, making sure that the one that's on top comes off first, just because if we do cross the lines, it could tend to mess up your corner and it's gonna look really ugly. So we did this big one first, then we did the little one, so we're gonna go backwards. We're gonna start with the little ones and go to the big one. So we're gonna go ahead, pull this, and then we're gonna go ahead and pinch the end of it and just give it a nice little tug and it'll rip right through. And we're gonna go ahead and just go through the vinyl. All right, so now that we have the little pieces off, we're gonna go ahead and do this big one. Again, pinch it, pull it over on top of each other, pinch it, give it a slight tug, it'll rip right through. And one thing I do is when I get to the actual film itself, if it's the last one, I'll go ahead and I'll pinch both the Knifeless tape and the vinyl itself, just like that. And what we're gonna do is go ahead and yank that Knifeless tape all the way to the other side. The next thing to do would be to go ahead, remove your excess film and the Knifeless piece, what's left of it, and we have our inlay. And that's how your inlay should look in this edge. Now the last piece to do would just be to do this piece that's in the middle. All right, now this one is actually a little bit trickier because there's no spot where I can actually put pressure to be able to pull the piece of Knifeless off. What we're gonna do is go ahead, give it a little cut, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grip both the Knifeless and the material, pinch it over itself, and give it a pull, and it should rip right through. And we're gonna go ahead and pull that piece off. and then comes off our excess piece. Our last step to finish off our inlay is to actually go ahead and tuck this around the back. What I personally do is I'll find these tabs, I'll cut along the side of them just to kind of break this up in sections. Go ahead and cut that off. There's our tab. We have another tab over here. We'll go ahead and cut it along the side. Tab off, it's exposed, and now I have this. This is like a little flap. What I'll do is I'll cut about a 1/4 inch off of the edge. I'll go ahead and heat it, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and just wrap it around the edge. This is just an extra little part of security, so once you put your grill in, it'll pinch that area and you won't have any type of lifting in that area right there. All right guys, so now next would be this piece. We're gonna do the exact same thing. We have a little tab, we're gonna cut about a 1/4 inch off the edge. We're gonna go ahead and give it some heat and pull it around the back. And we're gonna continue that same thing all throughout the end of this. So we're gonna go ahead and continue the same steps we did here. It's exactly the same thing we're doing. Some people like to cut on the end, that's okay, but when you do cut on the end, you're exposing the tip or the edge of the film, and during vibration, what the grill can do is you can start lifting it and you'll start having pullback right here. And the next step to do would be just to post your areas, making sure the film is not going to come back, cleaning all the memory, making sure everything's actually tacky on the edges. And pretty much after we're done with this side, we're going to go ahead and do the same exact thing on the other side. All right guys, so we have our big piece already installed. We have our inlays in place. We ran our test already, so we know that it's going to be perfect drop in here. So let's get into it. All right guys, this is the moment we've been waiting for. And so just like we did our test, we're going to cut on the same area that we did before. We want to make sure that when we cut, we cover our Knifeless tape just like this. We got the full coverage on the tape right here. And does this fall into place? It does. So as you can see right here, it went all the way. We did it actually laid in pretty good. You know, no need to worry about anything else now. All we gotta do is just go ahead and cut all our corners, and we're pretty much done. All right guys, so now that I did the exact same thing on the other side looks perfectly just like this. We're gonna go ahead, find our tape. Our tape does not have an end point on this. Unfortunately, we had to put it within the inside of the material. So all we're gonna do is pretty much find the edge of the Knifeless tape. We're gonna go ahead and make a little incision so that our Knifeless pops out. So I already did that. And I got my Knifeless tape right here. Let me just pop it out. Here it is, just like that. And we're gonna do the exact same thing we did over there. So we're gonna pinch it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna find where you can visually see it pop through the vinyl. We're gonna go ahead and just kind of cut down the middle of that. Then what's gonna happen is you'll be able to remove that piece you cut, and it'll expose the edge to your Knifeless tape, just like it did right here. After we get that, we can go ahead, pinch it, and pull the other side, and we can go ahead and start pulling our Knifeless tape, just like that. And we'll go ahead and finish it off on the other side. All right guys, so now that we have ripped the tape through the whole vinyl, we're gonna go ahead, grab the little green tape underneath and our extra piece of vinyl that we've cut off, and we're just gonna go ahead and rip it off just like that. The next thing you want to do, now that we have that done, we're gonna go ahead and grab our heat gun, give it a little bit of heat, and as you can see, when we were talking earlier about the hard line and why we chose this one, it's hardly visible. You can't really see it. It'll be more visible on this side. People will be able to notice it more. Right here, it hides a little better. But as you can see, you can't really tell. It looks good. It's gonna last a long time. And that is the proper way to do an inlay. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was very helpful to you guys. Remember, don't be afraid to use inlays. I hope some of the tips that I was able to provide to you were helpful. Remember also to use some of the techniques that we use, especially on this area, to make sure you don't come up short. Because if not, it's gonna be a waste of time for you, a waste of material for you. It's gonna be money wasted. So please be sure that you get on the first try. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to hit the comments below, and make sure to follow us and keep an eye out for the next video.